Alright class, we're here with MasterChef Rose Mitchell, who is also my mother, and we are going to make tomato chutney. So one of the things we do when we've got excess stuff is that we don't like to throw it away, so we are going to make use of it. So you would have seen before, we picked some tomatoes from the garden, so this is a selection of tomatoes from our garden, and we are going to show you how to grow your own seeds and grow your own tomatoes in your garden. But first thing we're going to show you is how to make chutney. So use that excess stuff with you. So Rose here, it's a very simple recipe. Rose is going to guide us through it. As you can see, we've got quite a large amount of tomatoes, and that's because obviously we've got a large garden, as you saw, and so we grow a lot. So Rose, talk us through the recipe of what you've got so far.
Alright, so this is a little chutney that we're going to make, and it's a lovely simple one that we don't have to take the skin off, which is great. So we're just chopping the tomatoes, and we're going to put them into a bowl, and when we chop all the tomatoes, then we're going to add the chopped onions, and then we're going to sprinkle it with salt, and we're going to leave them for 4 hours. And what that does is it helps to draw out a bit of the water. The salt draws water out of the tomato, so that when we do cook them, they won't be too wet. So
why do we not want it to be too wet when we cook it?
Because we want it to be nice and thick, so the water will just dilute it down too much. So it happens with a lot of, when we pickle, it happens a lot, and the reason the salt is to draw out the moisture. Because the more moisture you have, the less it's going to cook. It's going to take a lot longer to cook. You don't want it to cook for too long. It destroys the flavour.
And moisture is also the enemy when it comes to mould as well, because when we've got that excess moisture in our, once we've got in jars and stuff, we don't want that. So you want it to be dry so that it doesn't get that way of deteriorating and breaking down.
So we'll just show you this now. So we just add the tomatoes and we add the onion, and then we'll come back to when we finish the whole thing, and I'll show you the salt.
4 hours.
Alright, so as you can see, all the tomatoes have been chopped, and if you look at it, the tomatoes in there are actually quite rough. They're all at different sizes. It really doesn't make a massive difference how big the tomatoes are. They're all going to cook for quite a long period of time, so that's okay. And again, the onions are just a small dice. Helps with the cooking time to make sure it's like that. The salt here that we're adding is only a very small amount, because it's such a long time that it's going to sit in that bowl and sort of marinate together. It doesn't need to be a large amount of salt. Being a small amount, it will do its job, and that's why it's in there for a long time. You could speed it up by adding more in a short period of time, but then you've got to adjust that you don't need to add too much salt later to the dish because it might be too salty.
A few moments later.
So we've had the tomatoes on salt for 4 hours now, and as you can see, we're straining it as we go, and there's a lot of liquid that's come out of this. So there's probably, a few litres here at least of excess liquid. I'm just going to strain that off before we put that into here.
And then we put in all our dried ingredients. So we don't need that liquid because you don't want it to be too soft.
So this will all be discarded.
Yeah. So we've got everything in the big pot there. And now we need we need mustard powder. Sorry, we need curry powder. So we'll put the curry powder in, which gives you all the nice flavours. We now need mustard powder. Clark, if you can measure 1 cup of sugar for me. We'll take the lid off. Don't show that bit. Okay, so now we have mustard powder. Put that one in. Now, is that 1 cup of sugar?
Mm-hmm.
We actually need 2 cups of sugar, please, Clark. Now we're going to put a little bit of chilli in, just a little bit. Not too much, we don't want it too hot. And now not the sugar yet. Now we need 2 cups of the vinegar. It's alright. Okay, we're not putting the sugar in just yet. We're going to throw in 2 cups of the. They can use white wine or vinegar. We're using apple cider vinegar.
So it doesn't really matter what vinegar, but preference is to use the white wine vinegar. But we don't have any, so we just use whatever vinegar we've got in the house, and we have apple cider vinegar.
Sorry, we said the sugar before. We're actually not adding the sugar. And what we're going to do now is we're going to put this on the stove and we're going to boil it for 15 minutes. Then we're going to add the sugar to it, and we stir and stir until the sugar is dissolved. We then turn it down and we're going to cook it for about an hour or 2, depending on the thickness of it. So we'll see when we come back.
With the tomatoes, as you can see, there's actually quite a variety within there. We've selected a variety of tomatoes from our garden. So there's some black Russians, some beef tomatoes, and some ox hearts. You can do this recipe with any tomato, it doesn't really make a difference.
Alright, now we're adding the sugar.
So it's been boiling now for about 15 minutes.
So we add the sugar, give it a good stir.
So as you can see, by boiling it means we can see, and it's hard to tell with all the smoke or steam, but if you look at it, you can see that it's rapid boiling, so we're seeing lots of bubbles come to the surface, and then we're going to add in our sugar. So we're adding it now so that we're going to let it boil, we're going to let it melt within the liquid.
Dissolve, yeah.
So it's dissolved nicely, and then as it cooks, we're going to cook it for another hour, and by cooking for another hour, we're going to reduce some of that liquid. And so because the sugar's in there now, it's going to reduce and thicken up and become sticky and toffee-ish and thicker like it would with any other jam and stuff that we make.
Delicious.
1 hour later.
Alright, so this is just over an hour.
Reduced by half.
Yep, so it's reduced by half, and you can see that all the tomatoes, the onions, everything's sort of cooked down now. So it's almost come and sort of liquidized itself just through that slow cooking process. So it's been at quite a low heat, and I'll see if you can see the heat underneath there. So it's just on a very, very low heat, and it's been on that heat since it's come up to the boil. So this has got probably a little bit longer to go, but we need it to be a nice sort of thick consistency the whole way through. You'll notice that when it is ready, that it will thicken up as it gets cooler. So it doesn't need to be perfect when it's hot. So it's now ready, and the best way to tell that it's ready is that when you start doing this, you'll notice that it starts catching up on the bottom. Oh, I'm not feeling that well. There we go. So you'll see it starts catching on the bottom. So when you go like that, push it aside, you'll start to see the pan underneath, and you'll hear sort of a sound that you can tell that's catching on the bottom. That's when you know you're reaching a point where it's starting to get ready to turn it off. Okay, so just turn this off, but now we're just going to get the jars ready, and we're going to put that into the jar. So we're just drying them off here, and we'll be back.
Okay, so we've sterilised our jars, and it's very important that you have very clean sterilised jars. You can either boil them in a pot, but the best way is to put them through your dishwasher, of course with no chemical, and get them nice and hot, and you should fill them while they're still hot. So we're going to fill these up with a little spoon here. So it smells absolutely delicious.
It's true.
If you're lucky, maybe Clark will make you some sausages when we all go back to school. Some sausage rolls, I should say. And you can have some chutney with them.
So we're just going to fill these up, and then we'll show you the finished product. So these are now cool to the touch, which means that because they've all been filled, they've been filled not full all the way, but almost to the centre. See, there's just a little gap at the top. And so what we're going to do is now that they're cool, we can then store them away in the fridge or in the cupboard for later use. So they've just been sealed with the lid, and then they'll form their own natural seal and be able to store those for a long period of time. And then that's it for today. And then what we're going to do is we'll show you what to do with other stuff later.